I was going to ask a little bit about the dynamic between you two and kind of how you balance like working together, but then also being sisters and having like free time and your own. I'm sure you're both interested in kind of different things too. So just a little bit about that experience.
That's a
Yay!
great
I
question.
love this question.
Well, we were actually just talking about this earlier because we were recording a podcast.
Love
Because
it.
our YouTube channel just hit 100,000 subscribers. If you guys are interested in checking it out, it's called We Collab. And we were kind of just like reflecting on our own experience doing the podcast
A
together.
relationship as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, I don't know if any of you guys are interested in like personality types or like Myers-Briggs or the Big Five or any of those. But Isla and I are opposite personality types. So it's been really interesting. I think it's really valuable that because we're so different for us to be able to learn from each other in that way. I definitely was like very introverted and not super like comfortable being in the spotlight, and Ilo is kind of more the opposite of that, but I feel like in a lot of ways we kind of converge in terms of our skills because we were able to learn from each other.
Yeah,
um
I mean, okay, if you have opposite personalities, you're probably gonna have more friction. It's not gonna be super duper easy, especially if you're siblings. But it also means like if you can get through that and if you can grow from that, then you end up having a superpower relationship. And we were even saying that earlier today. We were doing a bit of sledding because it snowed a ton outside, and we were like, let's go outside and do some sledding. And we only have one sled, and so we both went on the sled at the same time, and we did that today. So two of us on the same sled, and we were a great sledding team. And it's like, okay, because we both have different skills with sledding, with podcasting, with being co-founders of Wequel. It's of course it's going to be a bumpy ride sometimes, but I think if you have a shared goal, then that makes it really great because then
mhm.
you have some reason not to annoy each other.
Well, I
You
think
have
this
some reason to collaborate and be patient.
Yeah, I think this does relate to what you were saying earlier. You're bringing up community, and I think this does relate to kind of thinking about our own relationship and how it has been super valuable in terms of, I think a lot of people in general, but especially young people, can struggle with trying to understand who you are and trying to build a sense of identity and understanding your place in the world. And I do think that that has to come from relationships because everything in terms of like just in terms of like personality and temperament, it's like that's all relative. Like if you were the only person in the world, you wouldn't know how introverted or extroverted you were because you wouldn't have anybody to compare to. And so I think that that's a big reason why it can be a struggle for young people in this environment, in this modern environment where we aren't as connected to our communities and our neighborhoods and like and all of that that we used to have much stronger back when, we actually relied on each other for social security. Like if, we had a house fire a couple of years ago and it was the insurance company and the firefighters that helped us. It wasn't our neighbors. But
Well,
before,
our
before,
neighbors did actually help us quite a
right.
bit, but that's
But
like
we,
but that's lucky. Like
yeah.
that's not something you can always expect, especially in a world like today. And our insurance company were the ones who, gave us a place to stay after that and stuff like that. And that's why people got insurance because,
Hmm.
they weren't around once they started moving out of their hometowns and like being less connected with their neighbors, then they didn't then because they were able to do that, then they had to find some other solution.
Yeah, well, a big reason why, like, once you have an insurance company, then you don't need to necessarily have good relationships with your neighbors
Yeah.
because, you're still taken care of even if they don't like you and they aren't going to give you a place to stay afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that in this modern environment where you have a lot of communities that are very disconnected, it makes sense why people would have a much harder time in terms of understanding themselves and their identities relative to other people because it's an environment in which, I think that this is something we were talking about earlier. It's like sometimes you don't even know if you have an opinion until you come across somebody with a different opinion, and then you're like, oh no, that's not me. And I think that relates to
You also
temperament, and that
know, oh,
relates
that's
to
not fact.
right. Yeah. And I think that just relates to understanding any part of yourself is that you need to be able to bump against other people to see how you're different. And I think that the only reason why you would necessarily even have that opportunity to do that is if you're engaging in meaningful goals where you're going to go through those sorts of conflicts. And I think that that's been an incredible part of my relationship with Isla is that it's given me so many opportunities to try to understand myself because we're collaborating so much and we can see the differences between each other. And I think that that's a huge part of community is that if you don't have that, then you're just kind of like one person in this world, and like how are you supposed to understand how you fit in anywhere?